Hello, and welcome to The Fool and the Philosopher.
The Philosopher and the Fool.
Today, I am Cameron, and you are Connor.
That's the usual, unless I'm you, but that make you me.
Since we're talking, we may as well use this as an opportunity to speak gooder, because I don't know if it's where we live, or if it's just us, or if it's just me, but I do not speak well. I do not pronounce all my words. I am lazy, I am sloppy, and I don't know what's coming out of my mouth most of the time, and each word is, like you said post to do this instead of supposed to do this. That's the one that made me notice, but then I just mumbled something after that. Have you noticed this? Maybe English is going down a route of mumbling, and it's just, it is just going to become a language where we talk like this. How's it going? Yeah, this is good. Yeah, I'm good. Well, I was just saying, okay, so my son is down with a caterpillar, right? And strange thing is that it was going around, it was dragging him across the gravel there, and I looked at the ant, and I was thinking, I could help it drag the caterpillar, it wasn't getting much traction, right? And then I was like, but should I help the ant? Because do I know where the ant wants to go? And then I thought, this must be what, if you were a god, what you'd feel like I could help these people, but I don't know what helps them, and what, maybe
Okay, I'm going to stop you there. So, a lot of languages are a lot older than English. English is a fairly new language compared to even French, which is actually fairly new. And English is accused of sounding very unmusical and very clipped and harsh, and it has large lack of rhymes, and it has, many languages, you can say a sentence in one word, whereas English, it takes you a bunch of words to say one sentence. And so maybe it's just English is evolving to those other languages where you can have the statement that means, yeah, I'm okay and the world's great. It's okay.
Yeah,
It's gay.
I have noticed that foreign people outside of West Africa, and other
republics,
queen-fearing places.
West Africa?
I don't know if they speak English here.
Right.
If this is a country we live in. But I think that, I have noticed that French people and German people especially, and also Chinese people, or people that speak Chinese languages, not necessarily all Chinese people, Malaysians speak Chinese. Partly. Anyways, the ones I know do. And they often have troubles understanding you if you're trying to speak their language. If you try to say something in Cantonese, or if you try to say something in German or in French, and you pronounce it slightly wrong, they have no idea what you're saying. Whereas in English, we can understand people, for the most part, who have said something that is only vaguely
we can understand
similar
people from Derbyshire and
to what was said. And I think maybe, as you said, English being a very clipped language and very
it doesn't have non-musical. It's
non-musical.
It has no rhythm as well. A lot of languages have rhythm.
Maybe that's an advantage for communication, and that is why English is the language of choice.
I am not a robot.
You have... with practice, I will improve.
With practice, I will promise to improve my enunciation of words and speak so that I can be understood without merging and having more clipped and well-placed spaces between my utterances.
But to speak clearly, I have
I have to think about it.
I messed up. I have... No, what?
have to.
I must.
I must.
I must form the shapes in my mind before speaking them. So it slows me down a lot because I have to first understand. I have to know first what I am going to say, and then I have to figure out how to say it. And that is difficult, in addition to trying, although I am failing mostly.
Not robot TM.
It's possibly due to how
Words work. Arg.
difficult, or no, how I feel self-conscious about it, but I think most people actually speak with a head voice, which sounds very nasally, and you can speak more like this, and then your voice is actually a lot less whiny sounding, and also it's better for you because you're not like using your throat to speak, you're actually just forcing air. But then you have to breathe more, and you actually have to put a bit of work into talking, but you sound like, you know, like you're trying, but it's very self-conscious sounding,
like Sean Connery,
because it sounds like you're trying to make your voice deep, but instead you're actually just speaking from your diaphragm or something.
You're speaking from your diaphragm.
So what you can do to figure out if you're speaking with your head voice, I don't know the terms, I'm not a music person, or your
linguist,
from your chest, you
/Connorist.
You can hold your nose and see if you could still speak the way you could speak it, and if it stays roughly the same.
That's fun.
If it stays roughly the same, then you're speaking good. But if vibrations enter your nose and you're speaking like this, then you're speaking with your head voice instead, and then you sound like this, and this is the head voice and you sound whiny, but then you can make sure that your nose isn't vibrating, and then you are speaking more like this, and you are...
That's really interesting.
That's
really interesting. Huh.
Speaking in a way that makes you seem
more noble and heroic.
Yes. This is how we should do our podcast, I think.
You are listening to The Fool and the Philosopher.
It makes us seem more refined. So I saw an ant the other day, Connor. Oh wait, let me try this. I saw an ant. I saw an aunt the other day. I saw an aunt the other day. Well, I was walking around the field, and the aunt was dragging a caterpillar, and I thought, the caterpillar looks far too large for the ant, and I lost it, and the ant was, I don't know how to say and I
think "and's" just a vibrating word.
Maybe. But this ant, anyways, was...
Or maybe it's not a proper word to use. Maybe you should avoid using "and" because it makes
yes,
nasal
cripple ourselves. The aunt was... No, sorry, the aunt. Yeah, there we go. The aunt. The aunt. The aunt. Aunt. Oh. The insect was spitting out in the gravel because it's... The caterpillar was far heavier than it.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought to myself...
Uh-huh.
Gonna like damage your ears like that.
Uh-huh.
So this ant, anyways, aunt. So this animal,
yes,
this creature, was unable to carry the ant, and I thought I could help it. Like I could pick the whole thing up, and I could pick the whole thing up, and place it on the other side of the road. I don't know what I'm doing anymore. I don't think...
I don't know what I'm doing anymore.
But I thought I could pick this ant up
Yeah.
and place it on the other side of the road. And in doing so, I would be able... Here we go. I would be able to... There we go, yes, okay. So, backtrack a little. There was an ant on the road, and I thought I could pick it up and move it to the opposite side of the road where it appeared to be heading. And, save it like a couple hours work. But I realized I didn't know if it was trying to spin the caterpillar around so it could go to one side of the road, or if I picked it up I would actually help it, or if it would lose its way because it might have been following a scent or a track, and I might have hurt it trying to pick it up or damaged its food, or there's so many possibilities. And it made me think think like if you were like an all-powerful being but who was not all-knowing, you wouldn't know what to do with your power, because you would see these things far beneath you and you wouldn't know what to do, how to help them. Like you think, oh, I'll just move you from one place to the other and then I am done here, and you move on. And so maybe you're not all powerful because, well, you're not omnipresent. Maybe you're omnipotent, but not omnipresent or omniscient. Mm-hmm. And you'd almost be powerless or you could just try to do your best. But yeah, it's kind of like, I guess the intention's good, but you could be causing like devastation on an untold scale.
Well, I have several thoughts on this matter.
See, you went a bit nasally there.
I have several thoughts on this matter.
Ah, very good. It doesn't have to be extreme. You don't have to go deep. You just have to figure it out. You just
One. Alright.
First, you just have to figure out how.
You just have to figure it out.
Yes.
So, one is that why help the ant and not the caterpillar?
The caterpillar was dead.
Alright. And then, do you actually know which way the ant is going, like you said earlier?
No.
And the ant might have friends coming later.
That is also what I thought, and they would be able to follow its trail.
Yes. Also, ants actually don't eat organic things they pick up. They drag them underground and have them rot, and fungus grows on them, and then they eat the fungus. Which is quite interesting. Because I always thought when ants were running about and picking up sugar and various other small things to eat, that they were actually eating them. But no, they're taking them to be composted so they can grow fungi.
Fascinating.
And what if that caterpillar had some disease in it that would damage their fungi farm? Maybe this ant was trying to dispose of the body.
I think this is where the postmodernists come in and say, well then, you may as well simply do what you think is right, because you cannot know what is right. And I think part of that sentiment is correct. But I think you can't say that there is no meaning. You just have to say there is meaning, but I don't know what it is.
I think I would much rather have an indifferent God than a God who tried too hard and didn't know what people really wanted.
Would you?
I think so. I think I'd much rather have an indifferent God.
That's what the Malazan Book of the Fallen is about. The god Shadow Throne wants to become supreme god and stop interacting with the world.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the other gods do their best, or they have their champions. And they cause all sorts of issues. It definitely takes practice to speak properly, and I don't know how to do it.
I think it's a like, let's say, like, let's go to you, Vic, okay? Because I know your opinions of there are interesting, okay? And let's...
Well, I'm listing pet peeves. Adjectives.
Let us...
No, the word interesting is a very powerful word.
Hmm.
It's similar to problematic in that they can cover a lot of bases, but you're not really saying anything.
Interesting.
And I think it's not a fault of the word or the people saying it. I think it's me. Because if you notice a word, you will start noticing it everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you think of
Indeed.
the word, you will start hearing word everywhere. And it'll start bothering you when people aren't more creative and say language or speech, or there's more to speaking than words. There's more to words than words.
Well, beyond the semantics, let's say we go...
Well, it's not semantics, actually. Semantics means the definition of things.
Well, let's go back to you, Vic.
Yes.
And take a random pool of people, okay?
All right, then.
Like teachers, students, whoever. And now we select one of them at random. That person has all power, but not all knowing. Would you want that? But they try to do good with that power. Let's just say they try to do good. Would you want that person to have that power? Like just some even random person in the world, they try to do good with all the power they have. It doesn't corrupt them, but they're just trying to do what's right, what they think is right.
Yeah, I think the only person I could trust with that power is myself.
Because you're the only one with your moral alignment.
Exactly.
You're the only one who knows what good is for you and what the right kind of good is, what your moral zeitgeist is.
Exactly. And because I know that I think the only person I could trust is myself, I don't think I would trust myself to use the power, and I would basically be powerless. There might be situations like someone's injured and I think, well, I'll heal them. And that seems fairly obvious.
But then you're going to keep everyone... Why heal one person if you just keep everyone healed? You have all the power.
Well, I think, actually, you could just use it selfishly, and that might be a better result than trying to better the world. It's kind of like how giving to charity turns out a lot better than communism. Like, you're just giving to your local people and stuff, but instead of spreading yourself too thin, you put help where it's needed.
You do what you can where you can.
And by giving to charity, sometimes charities steal them, but the idea of like doing charity, how about?
Yes.
Like, if you aid your family or your friends because you like them, you're probably going to get a better result than, my friend is ill, I'm going to change the government so that they must treat this illness before all others or something. Mm-hmm. I don't know, it sounds like I'm arguing against socialism, but it's not quite.
It's more of if everyone was just nice to each other, the world would be a nice place.
Yeah. It's strange because...
Yeah, so, but then a god, like, who knows what they think? So would you trust a god? Unless they were all-knowing, and even if they were all-knowing...
I think if it was... Maybe if... You know the Dalai Lama?
Mm-hmm.
How the Dalai Lama chooses a person who will choose the next Dalai Lama.
Yes.
And the person that the Dalai Lama chooses is supposed to choose like the wisest sort of spiritual leader to lead the people onwards. I think you could have that power as like an inheritance thing of like, we have chosen the person we think should have the power. Mm-hmm. And they have to be someone Well, the thing is, they'd have to be someone who's willing not to act and only uses it selfishly to like help out their friends, like with illnesses and stuff. Like imagine your friends. Okay, how about this?
Or they'd have to be Jesus.
Your friend has like, no, Jesus used it. Jesus used it selfishly in a way. But and by selfish, maybe I should say narrow scope rather than broad scope.
Yeah.
So let's say you come across someone with leprosy. You use your power to cure them. Great. You're not using your power to eliminate leprosy.
Yes.
Jesus didn't do that. He probably could have, given like the story and his powers. But I think for the writers that was a bit beyond the pale. Like leprosy just happened. It's not something that even God can deal with, sort of thing, potentially.
Yeah.
But even if they thought that, maybe they, in their wisdom, accidental or not writing it, they realized that there's a difference between curing leprosy and eliminating all leprosy to cure a leper, because that seems like it'd be fairly safe, but the consequences could be bad. I don't know. Like, it's like eliminating sickle cell seems really obvious, but then suddenly people are more susceptible to malaria. And leprosy, I doubt, has a similar useful role in any circumstance. And I think even sickle cell is, it's just like a
Better option than malaria.
Well, I think sickle cell actually is the anti-malaria gene a bit wrong. I don't think it's actually sickle cell that is the benefit. I think it's just a side effect of the anti-malaria thing. So you can have the anti-malaria without sickle cell, but I could be wrong. But who knows what happens? Like, maybe if you eliminate leprosy, the world loses like 10 pounds or 100 pounds of weight, and all of a sudden it spins off orbit into the sun.
Yeah.
And then, actually, Mistborn. This is going to be a spoiler for the last book of the first trilogy. And it'll be a short one, so you can skip ahead like 5 minutes if you want or something. The villain of the series drinks from a well that gives him infinite power, basically. And so he decides he'll warm up the planet a little bit so food is easier to grow. And so he moves it a little bit closer to the sun and fries the surface. And so he moves it away in panic, and like everything freezes. So he moves it closer again, but he can't get the distance right. So it's still too hot. And then he creates a bunch of volcanoes with his power to block out the sun.
So ashes constantly fall into
so that he can at least stop the heat. And then he like wipes out like most life, so then he has to create a new form of life. And like it's just disaster upon disaster upon disaster. And then he makes himself immortal, and he figures, okay, I'll plan for 1,000 years and fix this. And then he gets killed just before he can fix it. So it's kind of funny that he's a cool villain. Because he's not actually evil. He just doesn't care about like individual lives. He'll do anything to kill the people because he's trying to save everything. You know, Utopia is just one more death away kind of thing. But he's actually the hero in a way.
It's it's like, would you want a god that would try to do stuff?
Yeah, maybe not.
Because can you trust God? Or
like there are
can you trust a god, I guess? Like the Greeks have their way of playing. Like Zeus was a jerk. Like a lot of the gods were really mean. That's what they actually did. The only thing that stopped them from destroying the world was they had so many gods, they kept each other in check.
I think, like, even if I say I trust myself, or if there's someone else out there who I think is also wise, like someone, let's say, like the person that wrote Maps of Meaning, not Jordan Peterson, but the person who wrote Maps of Meaning, it's a slight difference, or Marcus Aurelius, or at least the person who wrote Meditations, not necessarily Marcus Aurelius. They seem like they would be good people to have it. But people have bad days. A book is a very carefully construed and edited.
Do you want a god that can have a bad day? Like that's how you get people, like a town smited. That causes pillars of salt,
or that's how you get like a deleted universe. Like Like if you have a suicidal god that's all powerful, you're like, well, I'm done.
Or even the Keys of the Kingdom, God retires, and for her to retire properly, she has to destroy everything. And so she made a whole universe, a ton of life in it, and then she's like, yeah, I think I'm done with all this, so rinse and repeat, someone else can now be God. But she wanted to retire, so she didn't care.
She wanted to do what, sorry?
She wanted to retire.
Retire, yes.
So, or die, basically. So she's like, alright, well, if I die, the whole universe has to die as well.
Speaking of snapping out life.
Yeah.
Endgame, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, Thanos says in it, I didn't realize how selfish people were, or that I thought they would take advantage of my gift, but I see that they don't now.
Yeah, you couldn't leave it be.
And so I'm going to have to restart the universe.
Mm-hmm.
So when he was slaughtering all these planets by hand, and they became flourishing nations afterwards and planets. It seems like Earth is the outlier, and he shouldn't base his universe-wiping plans on Earth. Because he said, like, Gamora's planet is now, like, the jewel of the solar system or something. Yeah. And that was slaughter by hand.
Well, I think there's actually a bit of a problem in writing it there, in a way. Because after Thanos wiped out half the population by hand, he would then come in and help the planet for a while. I'm pretty sure, and like that's what it seemed like he would do. Like,
I'm not sure if he did or not.
Okay, but still, it's like leaving
or not.
But he left things to his own devices, which he basically pointed out he couldn't do.
But it worked. Yeah, when you had like horrible bloody slaughter.
Well, I think what he's saying was maybe not even Earth is the outlier, but like if Earth can be an outlier, then there can be an outlier anywhere, because Gamora's the outlier.
But I don't think you should punish the like 80 to 90% of the universe because 20% of it can't get over like half their people dying. I mean, like.
Well, actually, I thought of another kind of unfair thing. So his snap wiped out half the life in the universe.
Yeah.
So what about the planets he already like called half the life on?
Yeah, sucks to be them.
Yeah.
The other thing that's, although it seems very powerful, the gloves seem to work with intention rather than exact stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I think the writers said all the people that came back were brought back to a safe location.
Yeah.
And on their planet, not floating in space or something. So it could be that the planets that were already doing well, he didn't have their populations. Yeah. And also, true randomness, you would have you'd have some planets be completely wiped out, potentially, and others not be touched. And so it wouldn't really be useful. But here's something. So let's say a person only eats beef.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let us say a person only eats beef.
Now, suppose when you snap the gauntlet, instead of having life on Earth, you have resource costs for everything.
Yes.
Okay. So that means that you now people need to eat half as much. Which means you need half as many cows.
Yes.
Alright. So, you have, let's say, 100 people, and you needed 100 cows to feed them.
Okay.
Now, people only need 50 cows. So you only grow a field of 50 cows. Now, the cows need 50 wheat to feed them. But the resources have been halved. So cows only need 25 wheat to feed them. Right? So...
And the wheat only needs
So now,
so much water.
well, I would have chosen like. I should have chosen a different number then if I want to have 25. I should have chosen 128 or something. Or
The wheat
or
only
124,
needs,
sorry.
12.5.
5 water.
Yes.
Right, to go. Now, if you go to our Earth, 100 people need 100 cows. 100 cows need 100 wheat. 100 wheat needs 100 water. So if you just have resource costs, you use an eighth the amount of water, a quarter the amount of land, and kill half the amount of animals. It seems
Way more efficient.
way more efficient. Like, that's exponential. You can either make your population explode, or you can have the land dedicated to farming, or quarter it, or eighth it. And I don't know how powerful the gauntlets are, but and maybe that would cause,
I don't think it can change fundamentals.
because that, maybe the universe can't exist if you're breaking sort of,
Yeah, I don't think it can change fundamentals on a wide scale.
because you're getting, well, I don't know, you could just make energy worth more. Like, does that actually
Then everything might explode.
break any rules? Yeah, but it doesn't.
Okay.
Just, you're right. I kind of wonder, actually, if you could, it's unfortunate almost that quantum, although maybe it's good, that physics is incomplete at the base level, because it would be interesting to run a computer simulation of the universe using like the fundamental, like whatever they may.
What if the universe is a computer simulation?
If there was like a single fundamental law, or
Trying to figure out that law.
yeah, more like, it doesn't have to be good. It just has to have gravity, like Newton's laws, electromagnetism, this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to have life and all, or maybe life naturally occurs, so you would have to simulate the whole universe to do this. But if you don't, it'd be interesting to do that, and then play with the values, and see if the universe was sustainable.
Well, you don't even need Newton's laws. You need the fundamental forces. They determine everything. So gravity, electromagnetism, strong, weak, nuclear forces. The other one, I can't remember.
But it might be that necessitates simulating the universe to do so.
And then there's possibly a sixth fundamental force instead of 5.
It would be very interesting. See?
Or there might even be 7, so.
The Fool and the Philosopher, 2 sides of the same coin, perfectly balanced, and the podcast which you are listening to.
So what I would find strikes my imagination. This idea of a computer simulation which runs millions of variables on the fundamental forces of the universe and sees what kind of universes are possible, and if there are many or one or few or infinite. And maybe that can already be solved, because there are like fields of math, for example, where you can for example, let's say x to the power, just x, as x approaches infinity.
Yeah.
Is this number going to be stabilized, reach infinity, negative infinity, or 0? It's pretty obvious it's going to reach infinity. It has no answer.
Yeah.
But then you could say something like, what is x over 2 to the power of x as x approaches infinity? And that approaches 0. Because the bottom number grows faster than the top number.
Yeah.
And so that sort of math exists, and I wonder if there's a similar sort of physics you could do where you can't actually look at the numbers, but you can look around them and already figure out
I think physics is trying to do that. I think that's the goal with a lot of physicists.
what the possible universes are.
Yeah.
Or like if there's a way to say, well, there are 3 possible universes, or there is one possible universe.
There's string theory, particle theory, and the other one.
But they're trying to explain our universe.
Mm-hmm.
I want something like, imagine for every bit of work you put in, you get 2 bits of work out.
Yeah.
Does that universe hold together, or does it just grow hotter and hotter and explode? Or imagine, or if like, see, we talk about energy being a problem, but I don't see why obeying all of like laws of thermodynamics, you can't have a device that gives off infinite energy on Earth, and it does so by sucking energy out of different parts of the universe that nobody goes to, like nobody needs. It's like chucking your garbage in a hole like far away from you. Problem solved.
Well, there's the problem of faster than light travel, which isn't possible.
Well, you send the lack of energy outwards. You just dump your negative energy out. Just chuck it.
There is no negative energy.
It's like you have a big ball of negative energy and you just shoot it as far away as possible, and it slowly it's filled in with the energy around it, but then that energy's lower. It's like if you had a big vacuum, right?
Space is really empty.
So I have a big ball of nothing in my hands, right?
Okay.
And I just chuck it out the window, and the oxygen fills in behind it, but then the oxygen in the room is now lesser, but it pulls out oxygen from the rest of the house, and that pulls it from the surrounding area. And so it for all our intents and purposes, we have all the air we need ever. Because you're just getting rid of your vacuum. You just chuck it out. And I don't see why you can't just do that with energy.
Because nature abhors a vacuum, and the vacuum collapses immediately.
Exactly. So you can just pull in energy by sitting there. You don't have to go faster than light. You just drain all the energy from it, and it runs downhill into your computer or whatever. That's the future. That is. We're not going to be worried about energy generation. We're going to be worried about
the universe running out of power.
Well, like annoying picketers with their save the rainforest and all that sort of stuff. We're going to have, good on them for saving the rainforest and everything. We're going to have stop entropy. Oh, the universe is ending.
If you have that device, if you have this device, right, that can take energy and transport to a computer, okay? Don't even need to go to the rest of the universe. You can keep it around Earth. Because energy is not created or destroyed. It is transferred. So when a computer uses up energy or power from you plug in the wall and it goes in pure, it's creating heat, and it's creating light, and it's creating a slightly different charge of electricity, and that's what's made. That energy isn't disappearing, it's turning to different energies.
Right, but
so if you could if you have this thing that can suck energy anywhere, then you could basically, all energy that's used could be basically thrown back.
Except it can't, because let's say you have a rock and you put it on top of a hill. That's potential kinetic energy.
Yeah.
And you roll the rock down the hill. All that energy has gone out into the atmosphere. But it's not back in the rock once the rock's at the bottom of the hill. So the rock can't get up to the hill without you putting more energy in. So you're cheating at that point. So you do need
that cheating's called quantum tunneling.
But quantum tunneling only works if the total is 0. Whereas and I don't think you can ever make a device that doesn't. At that point, it's not using energy, basically.
Well, you're just borrowing energy from the future.
Yeah, well, that's sort of my thought, I guess. But also, kind of making Earth like a sinkhole that all the energy runs into, which is...
Or even with this device...
Or, boring energy... Yeah, okay, so,
with this device, you could also just, launch pieces of, plutonium and explode them out in the atmosphere and then take all the energy and bring it back to Earth.
So you know how I think it's protons maybe can spontaneously form,
Yeah.
and they create a antiproton at the same time. It's like that. What happens is you just have a little thing, right? You press a button, a bunch of energy appears, and you grab it before it can like go back to the anti-energy, and then you just have like a fan, and it blows away all the anti-energy.
And so you just have a cloud of entropy.
So you're just like blowing out anti-electrons, like you're just like blowing them away with your fan.
Where are these anti-electrons going?
Well, hopefully far away. Just like get rid of them. Like they can like you can blow them at some high energy thing far away.
Do you know how dangerous antimatter is?
This is anti-energy, so it's fine.
Anti-electrons are antimatter.
But they're going to just like zoop, get like absorbed back with energy and disappear. And they're gone.
No, it doesn't get absorbed back.
So you're just borrowing. So you know how you power the entire planet? You have an entropy cannon, right? And you declare war on other spacefaring nations, and you fire your entropy cannon at them, and that powers your planet for like a year, and you also like dissolve their planet with your entropy cannon. So you need like you can also just like shoot at rocks or like nebulas or suns, but you might as well use it as a military weapon because like nothing's going to be more powerful than something that just literally erases matter and energy. Like that's just like an eraser.
So this device requires time travel to work.
No.
Yeah, it does.
No, just you borrow from like there's spontaneous generation of energy, but it's very small. But you just need a way to like stimulate it. You just got to like rub the fabric of the universe and have the energy pop out. Like it's like yeah. You just got to
if this device was real, it'd be terrifying, and I'm not sure I'd want it to be used.
Yeah, but in free energy, like I don't think like the energy has been a bit of an issue for like a couple hundred years. It's not going to be in the future. We're not going to need something this extreme. But then maybe someday we will, because we want something really power. Like, what if to power your super... Okay, you have a battleship that moves like the speed of light, but that's really energy intensive. So to do that, it needs a lot of energy. So all of its guns are these entropy cannons, so it's constantly firing, so it can move the speed of light. And then...
So it just destroys the universe around it.
So like the moment a nation declares war on you, you're through there at the speed of light with your... That's terrifying. I wonder if you can do that in Aurora 4X, because that would be cool. But can you imagine, like, it's like a battleship that is powered by its weapon? That's...
Yeah.
Terrifying.
Yeah,
we must be constantly firing so that we can...
keep flying.
Yeah. The speed of light. It's like... So it's basically a bullet. A very large bullet at that point that you can steer. It's because it's just destroying everything around it. So you're just
it's a large bullet that you can steer with people sitting in it.
Well, you don't need people in it, but you could, yeah. But anyone that has one of these battleships, like, who's stopping them? Like, that's the ultimate weapon.
What
like,
happens if two people have these battleships?
Like they said, the nuke was the ultimate weapon. I think it's the anti-energy battleship. Well, then what happens is for your battleship not to be dissolved, you have an energy barrier that can absorb the anti-energy. But to get that energy, you need to fire your cannons even harder. And so you're just like... So battles are just like Dragon Ball Z fights where there's like two lasers of just like trying to absorb their energy shield faster than they are. And you're like... And so whoever has the
It would never go anywhere.
Whoever's the biggest cannon wins.
No, because then it'd be whoever has the biggest transistor wins.
No, because, well, like, you have to get the energy to your shield in time, I guess.
Yeah.
If that's what you mean. I'm not sure what a transistor is, but...
It's a power converter.
Right, but you're, yeah, whoever can, like, move energy fastest wins, basically. I could see it. And then you could also power your country, like... Yeah.
And then you're also beaming. And after you win, you've had like a giant ship that you converted into pure energy, and so you beam all that back to your planet.
Of course, what are you...
You're powering your ship.
No, it's just...
You are listening to the Food and the Philosopher. Humans must die.
At the point you have these weapons, what are you fighting about? Like, is the universe not big enough? Do people's values so go against your own? That could be the thing, actually. Like, resources have commonly been a thing for fighting, but so has religion and ideology.
Yeah.
Like, if there's like this slave nation that thinks the only good in the world is enslaving other nations, then we would do anything to fight against them, right?
Well,
And then you have war forever, because it's just incompatible, like, axioms, and there's nothing you can do.
in the Bobbiverse book series, there's a race of aliens that they call the Others. And the Others are an extremely advanced alien race that are a hive mind. And so they serve a queen. And they're basically like giant ants. And so you actually can't negotiate with them because they see the universe, organics as food to feed their colony, and metal to help build a bigger nest so there can be more of them. So that's their only view. Like, there's no reasoning with them, that's their view. And the Bobs are human AIs that are all clones of each other. And they're trying to protect humanity and the rest of the universe from the Others. And they keep trying to negotiate with the Others, and they decide basically, like, if we leave any of the Others, like any of them, they will just always try to kill us. Like, the Others even have a thing like, what happens if you get another queen? And they say, if we get another queen, the two will fight, and the winner will rule the hive, basically.
It's like China.
Yeah. But so it's basically like, they have to eat everything, kill everything. Like, everything is food to them. Like, they call other people food. And then when the Bobs actually bloody their nose, they're like, oh, okay, we have to kill this thing with extreme prejudice. Because it has the potential to hurt us. But still, even though it's like almost technologically equal to us, it is not the hive, it is food. Like, that's their view of anything else.
Yeah, there's just...
And so their morals are so different than any logical morals we have that, like, the Bobs like hate the thought of genocide, but it's their only option.
like Kantian, so war is inevitable no matter how advanced yeah. And like Kant has his the fundamental principles of the metaphysics of morals, where we talked about this before, of course, where he says any reasoning being would come up with these, and he seems right, but I wonder if there could be, well, there can be a type of thinking that we can't even think of. And so our stories, we try to represent that with like those bugs, but we can actually get behind that to a certain degree.
Yeah.
We can understand that. And so we can say, well, we understand this and we can argue against it and therefore it is wrong. But there's probably stuff we can't think of that, like, they just appear insane. Like, like let's say someone like Joker from Batman. What if he actually has a perfectly rational line of thought using a different set of axioms, and so he appears insane from the outside?
Well, that's what he claims.
Yeah, but he's actually working towards a moral or logical goal using a different kind of logic or morals.
That might be the case for a lot of insane people, actually.
And in The Killing Joke, they actually suggest that he's kind of an absurdist. Like, he just thinks that you don't have to care about anything. And that's pretty powerful. Like, you don't. But then you don't have any meaning, and then...
Yeah,
so it's almost like you have to... I read this... Guy said something. I didn't like it, but he might be right. He said at some point you have to have a leap of faith. Like, you just have to decide that you agree with something or not. Like, at some baseline level, it's just based on nothing other than you decided you liked that more than... Like you just wanted it. Like you can either say nothing matters or I want stuff to matter. Like that's I think that's a choice almost, because what's the argument against not mattering? Like you can say pain or you can say suffering, but you don't have to care about those.
Yeah.
Like people do care about those things. So it seems silly to go against it, but it is possible to just not care. Like you can do it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's something.
Even like a line of thought you can't even comprehend. Like it's not even insanity. Like that's possible. Like
No, it just looks insane.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. It's just not reasonable. Like it's not humanly comprehensible.
Yeah, so it looks insane to a human. Because you think you know what the reason they're doing something for years, and then this happens already, and it's just because people don't communicate. For example, it's tricky, but let's say, well, here's a simple one. Like this is dumbing down. This isn't giving most people the credit they deserve, but it's a simple example to illustrate.
Yeah.
Me and Bob over here agree that driving over the speed limit is wrong.
Yeah.
We go for like 50 years. We're in perfect agreement. And then one day, you're injured and you're dying, and I phone up the hospital and they say, "Oh yes, we know this exact injury. He's got half an hour to live. We can save him though if we can get to him in time." And I said, well, following the speed limit, it would take me 35 minutes to get to the hospital. So if I just go 10 kilometers above the speed limit, I can save your life. And so Bob and I jump in the car, because we got to try, even if we don't think we can make it. And I speed and I make it to the hospital and save you. Now Bob says, "Wait, that was wrong. Like I thought I've known you for 50 years, and we have always been in perfect agreement about morals. And all of a sudden you did something super uncharacteristic. Like you suddenly acted insane." And I say, "No, I've always been consistent. I've always driven at a speed that allows for the maximum safety for all people involved." And Bob says, "I've always driven at a speed that exactly follows the law."
Yeah.
We had a totally different system of guiding principles for 50 years, but appeared in perfect alignment. And so when one of us suddenly shifts out of it or doesn't shift out of it, we appear insane to the other. Like let's say Bob was driving and he's driving the speed limit, and I go, "What are you doing? I thought we were like in perfect agreement. We're trying to save lives here." And Bob's like, "No, I'm trying to drive the speed limit."
Yeah.
And you see that a lot where some people are like in an uncharacteristic like move, or they're suddenly acting like totally strange, or like I thought I knew them and I don't know them anymore.
Yeah.
And it's probably because you didn't know them. Like they were operating on a totally different scale or set of, like, not a better one, just a different one. Like I remember having an argument with our dad actually, where I said I disagreed with his opinions on free speech. I said I'm fully for free speech. And he was saying, but he was giving me good arguments against free speech, actually, some of the best I've ever heard. And I said, no, I don't think, I think you have to have full free speech. And he said, so you think your morals are better than mine? Or you think you're better than me? And I was, no, I just think different. And I don't know what that means, because I'm not him. But we obviously come at it from like a different angle.
Yeah.
Somewhere in there. And so he sees me as apparently being superior or something, like acting it.
Yeah.
And I see him as, I don't know. I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
It's a different set somewhere in there.
Or even communication-wise, I was talking about the Name of the Wind.
Yeah.
And I was saying it's what was it? It's incredibly well written, but it's not a super good story. That is what I was saying to my friends. I was saying it's incredibly well written, but it's just a okay story.
Yeah.
And they're like, "What? No, it's an amazing story, and it's incredible because it's incredibly well written." I'm like, "No, it's a very good book."
Yeah.
But it's because it's a good book because it's incredibly well written, and the story's okay.
Yeah, you definitely see that.
And they just couldn't comprehend what I was saying. They just kept disagreeing with me because it's like, no, it's a really good book, and it has a good story. Like the writing is what makes the story good. And it's like, no.
Most of my reading friends are the opposite. They love books like The Shadow of What Was Lost, Dawn of Wonder, The Shattered Empire.
Mm-hmm.
They love these books, and I've read them. And the pacing is so slow and slow boring,
Mm-hmm.
and the writing is so bad, and the spelling mistakes are so bad. I can't stand them. Like these books, if I edited them, I could knock them down to a quarter their size at least. And like, I'm not saying I'm a good editor. It's just they drag like crazy and go on these unnecessary tangents. But the plot is like apparently really compelling because my friends will say, "Yeah, they didn't write this well," or "This is definitely slow." A lot like you, Daniel Green actually, he says something weird. I feel like he has a channel about books, but I don't know if he's actually read that much. Like he's read a lot more than most people, but he is only like, early 20s or something.
Yeah.
Because he definitely says like, most fantasy books you have to slog through the bad stuff to get to the good stuff, and I will not put up with that.
Yeah.
I'm only reading a book that's like interesting. Like,
well, that was kind of for me with was Villanova Tapestry.
Yeah.
Where I was like, this book is boring, and I kept getting told it gets better. Like once you get into it, it gets better. I was like, okay, so I'm out of the real world now. I'm in the fantasy world. Like that happens in that book, and it's like this book's still boring, and like I just kept trying to get through this book, and it's like, yeah, it gets really good in the next book. But you need to read the first book, because basically what I was told after I said this first book was boring. And I found the book so boring. It feels like a bland dream you can't remember. Like, I can barely remember the book.
That's how I remember it.
Because it was...
I think it's like a good story, but it's very slow.
Yeah.
And I think that one's almost more of a different taste. I don't think it's poorly written or anything.
Yeah, no,
it's just a different type of writing.
Yeah, I found it incredibly boring.
Yeah.
And it's like I regret reading it.
Something like Name of the Wind is objectively written well. That's not a matter of taste. It's written really well.
Yeah.
But the story is quite average. Like,
yeah. But like
there's a lot of clever stuff in there which you don't normally see. But the basic bare bones plot is just like guy goes to magic school, works for a duke.
Yeah.
That's it.
Taste wise, for books like Cameron's saying, man, this book sounds incredibly boring, that I was listening to because they're talking about military doctorate and how to fly planes. And you found that incredibly boring. And it's well written, the book. But you found it boring because it wasn't to your taste, that sort of writing. And I find that very interesting.
I learned about a new genre of novels recently, and I've been reading them, and I'm quite liking them. But I was trying to explain it to our mum, and I definitely did not sell it even to myself. So it's called police doctrine or police procedure novels. They're like detective novels, but there is no like, aha, it was you sort of moment. Instead, they have a pretty good idea of who did it, but even if they don't know who did it, that doesn't matter nearly as much as following police procedure and letting the system and all the steps along the way get you to the conclusion you need to either make an arrest or keep someone safe.
Having all the evidence, motive, weapon, location, alibi.
Not really. Like it's not about that. It's about just putting someone in jail. You don't care. You don't care what their alibi or motive or anything. It's just, all right. Once you do this, you knock on all the doors of the neighbors and see what they have to say, and then you go to every one of the names they listed and interview them, and you check out all those names. You put it in the database, and then your boss tells you, okay, now I want you to instead work on this case. So you go to that case and work on that for a bit, because it's a job. It's not you're not devoted to solving a mystery. So you go home, you sleep, you go to the park, you play, you go back to work, you do like another hours on whatever case is handed to you that day, and you might never know the conclusion, but somewhere in the system it's being solved. And I didn't know it was a genre, but it's the one I'm reading anyways. It's cool. Like the guy knows police very well.
Yeah, well, like the book that I'm talking about is written by Sanderson, and he like asks people for help basically on like how do like flying a fighter jet work, and he also asks other people like what's military doctrine, so you could have like a totalitarian military dictatorship basically set up. And so he's doing that whole system, and he's writing that very well, what it would be like. And I found it very interesting, and you didn't seem to find it all that interesting.
Yeah. No, it was very, like... I don't like books about schools for the most part, and it felt very much like some sort of school with, like, the rivalries between the kids, and, like, it was all a simulation that they were learning in, and you actually had to sit there and listen to the lesson. You couldn't just... Like, after lessons, we went flying and did cool stuff. It's like, right, class, first of all, this is a... Like, he also did that with The Rhythmatist, actually.
Yeah.
Where it's all in a school setting. And I'm not a fan of that, generally. Harry Potter, I think, did it very well, because Harry Potter left me wanting more of the school. Yeah. But there's actually very little emphasis on the lessons. Because the thing about Harry, which you don't see that often, he's a good student, but he's not a great student. Like, he goofs off in class, or he doesn't listen to the boring history teacher, or he's not actually, like, he's just an ordinary guy. And so he actually, it's like, she'll write in like a snippet of the lesson, but it'll actually be Harry like mostly just looking out the window or thinking, or he'll see like Hagrid doing something on the grounds, and he'll be like, can I get a glass of water? And then he'll like skip class and like run out and go see what Hagrid's up to, and like so but in like Brandon Sanderson's books, it's like bell rings, you sit down, you hear the whole lesson until the bell rings again, and you leave.
Yeah.
And so it makes me wanting less, whereas Harry Potter leaves me wanting more. And like The Rhythmatist I quite liked all the same, but I definitely in Name of the Wind felt the school section could have been relegated to like a chapter or two instead.
I'm pretty certain that Skyward book I'm talking about is meant to give off the conception of it being like a book where people are going to a school, but it's really a book about it's a book about soldiers, really. Like, it's actually very Malzahn-y in a way of like the people around you will die because you're fighting a war, and it's painful, and like a bunch of stuff happens, and who you think you are gets destroyed because like it's just the world is so harsh, and once you start like interacting with what the world actually is, it's going to tear you apart.
Yeah, so there's this bit of writing advice, which is, are you writing about the most interesting part of your character's life? If not, stop whatever you're writing and write about that instead. and so skip the school bit and go to the war, and then they can have like the flashbacks of like, I was sitting by them in class, and like you can, but I think
you can follow that piece of advice, or you can write a bigger picture.
Yeah.
I think you can paint a bigger picture.
No,
because a mountain can be boring, but a mountain with something in front of it can be interesting, and the mountain makes the thing in front of it better.
Yeah, I just don't want to work for my story. Like that's just annoying. Like I don't have to put up with something. Like that's kind of what he was talking about with fantasy books. Like you have to put up with all this stuff to get into it.
Yeah.
And that's not for me. I will say with the
I found I didn't put up with that stuff as well because I enjoyed it.
I find with the Rhythmatist though, the advantage over Name of the Wind. In Name of the Wind, it's like, all right, say the magic words or whatever. I don't know how he casts spells. Like, do your mind in the 12 pieces, and suddenly you can cast magic.
Yeah.
It's not interactive. The Rhythmatist, you can cast every spell in the Rhythmatist, and you can invent new spells because it's like mathematical, basically. Like it's so. It's like, man, I got to play a board game or a video game based on this. Like he actually teaches you something new.
Yeah.
Whereas you're in Name of the Wind, you're watching someone learn something that you don't understand.
Yeah.
And so you're just kind of watching nonsense.
Yeah.
It's like this could be a montage or something because this doesn't make any sense to me.
Doing some stuff. Some manly stuff.
Yeah.
Montage.
Because, but the rhythmatist, it's like, here is the defense form. The more perfect a circle is, the better it is at deflecting. And you're like, I can draw a circle. Yeah. So it has an advantage of being applicable to your life.
Yeah.
Not
applicable, but interactable.
That's applicable. It's just useless.
Yeah. But it's more interactive.
Yeah. Like, I could pull out a piece of paper right now, and we could have a little rhythmatist battle.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we would have to fudge it a little bit, but we could do it.
Yeah.
Could be like, all right, here's my complex structure, but its form looks good, so...
Yeah.
Or, like, because, like, there's... The complexity of an attacker is helpful, but it also has to look good. So it's better to do a simple attacker that looks good than to do a complicated attacker that looks bad. But a complicated attacker that looks good is the best.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I could just, like, attack you with little triangles that are, like, my battleships that go pew, pew, pew. And if they're, like, equilateral triangles, that's probably fairly tough.
Yeah.
But if you draw, like, a tiger...
And it will tear them apart with no problem, and they'll barely hurt it.
Unless it's, like, some dumb-looking tiger, and then it's kind of worthless.
Yeah.
Yeah, and, like, this line is a deflection thing.
Or I could just draw a horde of stickmen really, really fast.
Yeah. It's pretty cool. Like, you can discuss strategy.
Yeah.
Whereas, Name of the Wind, so, if you hold your mind in 7 pieces and think of magic...
Yeah, I think...
Then you do more magic.
I think that's actually partly what Sanderson's magic does, which might be why people like it so much, is in a lot of books it's like, why is this person so strong? Because they're powerful. Like, they can shoot the fireballs bigger than anyone else. Brandon Sanderson, it's, why is this guy so good? Because he's figured out that if you do magnets in this pattern, you can move really fast along the ground. And if you do these things, you can do things really efficiently.
The risk of... I don't think Sanderson has actually made a mistake, although I'm only one person yet on this problem. But the problem with Sanderson's rules being so clearly defined is that the readers can go, What? He has these tools and he didn't do this really easy solution that would have solved everything? Like,
and that's because Brandon Sanderson might miss it sometimes.
But I've never seen it. But it could have happened.
Well, Sanderson has a thing that I didn't know authors did. And so does the... Peace Talks is currently having this right now. There's people called beta readers.
Well, when they say that, they just mean like their friends and family.
Yeah, their friends and family.
Like agents and...
Yeah, but also, like, people do that to see if they can figure it out.
Yeah.
Like, some companies will actually... Like, agencies will hire, like, proper beta readers so they have no association with that person, so they're not in their sphere. Because, like you were saying when you were at the court case, you really associate with, like, your friends, and the people in the court case were almost like an alien thinking to you.
Yeah.
And so you have to present a book to someone outside your sphere to see if they're... Because if they're in their sphere, it's like, oh yeah, I know where he's going with this, I understand his thinking.
Yeah, our dad was talking...
And I'll fall into the same traps that he does.
Our dad was talking about that with his computer programming, where he, like, made some program and he thought it ran really smoothly and did amazing stuff. And then someone, like, went and double-clicked on a button and it popped up a window he didn't know existed, and he was like, why would you double-click on that button? But now I need to fix that, so that's good. And so he tries to always get other people to test his systems, because they'll do stuff he never thought of, because they don't know what his system's meant to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you're saying, though, with the Name of the Wind, like, even his magic kind of sucks. Like, it's really cool in some ways. But also, it's like, I'm better than you at this, so I'm good.
It's like...
I can think really hard, and I can see the wind in these shapes and make it do stuff sometimes.
If you try hard enough, you can make anything obey you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's... But, man, he's a good writer. And he's got some very, very clever stuff in his book.
Yeah.
Like, I was poring over his books for days, finding all these little clues and like connections and making hypotheses.
Hypotheses. Hypothesis?
Hypotheses?
Hmm.
I don't know. I don't know what the plural is. Yeah. But those...
Hypopothi?
No, don't think so.
Does the word come from Latin or Greek?
I don't know. I think it's probably Greek, but I could be wrong.
Because you can usually figure out what the plural is by what it comes from.
Yeah, but you have to also know how to pluralize, like, Greek or something, which is complicated. And so is Latin. Like, they have a lot of plural forms.
Trium quam philosophium immutabius et boldus.
But anyways, you're hypothesizing this book.
Yeah. And there was a lot like, there is a poem right near the start of the first book, where if you read 3 words together in a row, it actually tells you who one of the characters in the story is.
Yeah.
Like, who puts that kind of detail in? It's crazy. He's got that sort of stuff everywhere.
And that's why his books take 8 years to write.
Yeah, well, he actually wrote them all years ago, but it takes forever to edit them.
Yeah, that's why I meant, like, he's making sure everything works.
Like, apparently he wrote the entire series before the first book was published.
Yeah.
And it's been 9 years since the second book has been published, or 10 years or something, and it's still not up.
Yeah, he's an old geezer.
He's not that old. Yeah, he's like in his 40s, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
He looks old.
I think he is. I could be. I think he's in his 40s.
Yeah, you have to be careful with magic, I think. Or just books in general. When you write them. Because, like, the thing I found a problem is, like, you come up with a concept. And then you're like, how many times, like, can this story survive off this concept? And that happens in TV series. Which is it's a trap that a lot fall into. Like, you get a TV series and you're like, okay, it's about a family, okay, yeah. But the family is all werewolves, okay. And then you have a sitcom, which is really bad, and there's werewolves in it. And like the first 2 episodes of the show were really good. Because, like, they explored the werewolf stuff and it was really interesting, but they explored it to about the maximum extent, and now it's just a sitcom with werewolves. And that can actually happen in books, too.
A lot of people... Maybe, no.
We don't like saying a lot of people here.
So, let's do this a different way. The concept is not the hard thing to come up with. It's the story that's the hard thing to come up with.
Yeah.
You can come up with angels are a part of the United States military. They're
Pterodactyl goes to high school.
They're soldiers on the ground, and they only the United States has them, and they will. There's only a few of them, and they keep hidden, but they will occasionally, like, heal a soldier miraculously, or win a fight on their own, or forgive the enemy, and they break down crime. Something like, you could do that.
Yeah.
And that sounds pretty cool. I'd like to read that. But you have to write a good story. That's not enough. That's a concept, but it's pretty easy to come up with a concept.
Yeah. And then somehow Sanderson, though, comes up with concepts that are so far out there. And then he writes a good story.
I don't think he does. I think he has a good story and he chooses a magic to go with it, sort of. Like, well, it's probably simultaneous.
Yeah. Well, the thing that I actually heard that was the science fiction writer guy who, like, wrote Orson Scott Card. What he would do is actually come up with a concept and then go, okay, we have this concept, now I'm going to write whatever story I want, but the world has to deal with this thing in it. Like, that's something he would do for some of his books. Like, when he originally wanted to write A Planet Called Treason, he was originally going to write a book called Extra Parts, and it was about these, like, extreme aristocrats who have so much genetic modification and stuff that like, oh, let's just grow an extra nose for this party because we're so obscenely rich. It'll be amusing. It'll be a fashion statement. But there was no story in that idea, and so he like tried pitching that to an agent, and the agent's like, yeah, give us a story. And so he's just like, all right, I'm gonna just put this away, and then he came up with a story, and he used that as an element in his story. But a lot of the time, apparently, Orson Scott Card with his writing will go, all right, this is a concept that's interesting. Now let's just tuck it over here, and it's one of the things that's in this world. And now let me write a story with that, because he's a sci-fi writer. So it's like, if these people... What? What are you doing? Playing with my pants. But it's like, if we could get these people with these traits, usually smart children, if we could get smart children into a situation like this, what would they do? And then sometimes they're like, and they have to do this. How would they go about doing it? I wonder if you could almost write a guide on stories about that, like, write a thing, then write a have to do, and then then write your characters, and then you can figure out how they do it.
I've heard Pixar has like an ad-lib sheet basically, and they fill it in, and that's their next movie.
Really?
Yeah, like they have a. So it must be fairly robust because their movies seem decently different.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've heard they just like have a formula they use, and they like whack out a movie from that.
Insane video I saw about Pixar is all their movies they make allow them to make better movies. So what I mean by that is, so like the very first like super insane 3D movie that came out was Toy Story. I'm pretty certain. Like that was the pretty big one. And if you look at the like human, like they barely focus on the humans in the first one, and they barely focus on any of the animals. Those things look terrifying, right? Like they look like weird putty monsters, like the humans and the dog, that like the bully kid's dog in the first Toy Story. Like those things look terrifying. And then in the fourth Toy Story movie, they have like a picture of a cat, and when you first see the cat, you think that cat's a real cat that they have in the movie. So apparently, like over the years, like every different film, they've added in like a new art element. Like Bug's Life taught them how to like get light hairs on stuff, like the very first thing, like 10 or something, and wings. And then like Monsters Inc. with the fur on the giant ogre guy, Sully or whatever, Sullivan. That really taught them fur. They like went in and individually like programmed all that fur and like worked really hard on it. And they're like, all right, we need fur for this creature. All right, let's take some Sullivan fur. Like we have a program that can now just plaster this on, so it's easier. And then like Moana, it's like, all right, we really need to learn water physics because we suck at that. And so they had a film based all around water. It's like, okay, now we can do water physics because this whole movie was about water physics. And so like their anime studio's like gone from thing to thing. It's like, all right, we need this. Like, let's take these elements now and work with them.
They're inventing the technology as they go.
Yeah, and so then they can use them in their next video. And then, like, so every single movie, they add a new element, and then they can have those in the next one after that.
It's amazing how new the technology is. Like, that there's... And it's kind of cool that at the bleeding edge of it is, like, a... Is it
well,
cool?
I think one of them was, like, clothes physics as well.
Is it, like, cool, or is it... Not
it's
like
capitalism,
but like there's a giant company at the front of it. Like a lot of stuff, the first one fails, but here you have like Disney at the head of the push.
Yeah,
and maybe they're stealing it from like some indie guys that are like doing some like nostril hair physics, and they just like snatch that from them. But it seems like there's a massive corporation at the front.
They don't have to steal it. They can buy that studio and have the nostril hair physics people work for them until they're done with them. And then those people are good physics workers, so they can do other work for them later. You have that much money, you can just buy those people.
Yeah. Well, unless, you know, they're like, they've got like a strong, like, you know, I do it for the art, I can't be bought. That nostril hair physics, you're not taking that from me for any price. I don't have a price. This is for the people. I'm releasing it. Well, then they get it anyways.
Yeah.
This is too powerful. I must destroy my research. We'll give you $1 million. No.
Give you $10 million.
No. You were the only one that could ever figure it out. And it shall remain that way.
You'll die with me. There's actually a sort of a thing like that in Full Metal Alchemist. So there's like a bunch of different alchemies that get discovered throughout the series, and like the original alchemist like had insane powers, like it's because he summoned basically a demon with knowledge of a ton of alchemy. And then it's like trickled down from him, but people come up with new alchemies, and there's this one guy called the Fire Alchemist. And he's the only person in the world who knows how to do that alchemy besides his master. And his master died. And the instructions to teach other people how to do this alchemy, though, got tattooed to the back of the alchemist's daughter. And after the alchemist was in a war or something, he witnessed his power with the fire alchemy. And so did the daughter. They're like, yeah, people shouldn't have this ever. And so the alchemist burnt the tattoo off her back of the instructions. So no one could ever have fire alchemy but him, because it's just so dangerous that they didn't trust anyone else with it.
That's dumb. Why is it on her back? Well, I need to write this down. A baby. All right, get me my pen.
It's actually probably something to deal with alchemy, where it can be written. There's
I've got
quite
parchment.
a few rules.
I've got...
it might have only been writable on flesh.
I've got...
Some alchemy can only be written on certain materials.
This thing of sand I could draw my finger through. And I've got a baby. Which one?
Or he might be trying to hide it so no one could find his research notes.
Yes. Daughter, come here. Yes. Strip. Turn around. Here we are. Yes, thank you. Okay, very good. Carry on.
His reasoning doesn't make complete sense to me right now, but it's more of the fact that they just destroyed all of his notes because it's just so dangerous no one else can have it. It's going to die with that guy.
Can I go swimming with my friends? No. You have to wear the scuba suit.
Alright, my, well, it's not even a metaphor, but, example, fell flat.
It can only be written on flesh. If only I had my own flesh. That would be useful. And I could keep my notes with me at all times so no one could take them from me. No, I'll put my child at risk so everyone tries to kidnap her or peel the skin off her back or whatever. That's the ticket.
Yeah, well, she has a massive burn on her back now.
Yeah.
Massive burn scar.
And if I ever want to do anything, it's not just me making that choice and burning it off my hand. I have to disfigure my own daughter.
He didn't disfigure her. It was his student disfigured her.
Right.
And it's her decision, I think.
It just seems a little...
Look, ignore the strangity of that, but the guy just got rid of the knowledge because...
I'm not saying it's bad writing. I mean, it's just the character sounds stupid. You can have a stupid character and it still be good writing.
Full Metal Alchemist is pretty good.
Alchemy is really fascinating. Young did some writings on it, and I've read a little bit.
Well, Full Metal Alchemist did some really interesting things on it. With alchemy, they established a few rules, but they also followed some of the ideas from alchemy.
Because it's very... It's based in metaphor.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. In Full Metal Alchemist, there's this one part which is everything it takes to create a human. It's all the elements is basically listing how much you need.
Yeah.
And so two kids, this premise is two kids are trying to bring their mother back to life. And so they get all the things that are needed. And then they give a little bit of their own blood. Because life force, they oh yes, there should be some life in it. And it's a horrible mess that sets up the rest of the series of what they create. And alright, so obviously we need a ridiculous amount of energy though, they figure out, to bring someone back to life. So we need the Philosopher's Stone. So how can we get the Philosopher's Stone? And basically they find out that everything's equivalent exchange. However, the creation of life in the first place, Philosopher's Stone or stabilization, is such a ridiculous amount of energy. It requires thousands of people to die to make a very weak Philosopher's Stone. And that Philosopher's Stone probably can't open up the gates of death to bring someone back. Because bring someone back to life, you have to open up the black gate. And that just takes a ton of energy. And then maybe even the person doesn't want to come back through it. But it's always like following the principle of like there has to be equivalent exchange in all things.
Yeah, in
Like the fire alchemist, I'm pretty sure what he does is when he snaps his finger, he's turning air into pure hydrogen or something, or pure oxygen, and then the snap of his finger creates a spark on his gloves, and so then basically all the air in front of him will combust in the path he chooses.
like actual alchemy, a lot of the idea was based on redemption.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea was that all things want to be perfect, and all things are like man and want to transcend their earthly bounds and become perfect and uncorruptible and pure.
So lead wants to become gold.
So lead wants to become gold. Exactly. Lead is impure. Gold can't be tarnished. Gold can't be tainted. Can't be destroyed.
Yeah.
Gold is like the pure
Yeah.
thing. And so what you're doing is you're not only trying to make gold. You're trying to make pure gold or whatever. You're trying to make like this idea of gold, which isn't necessarily the gold that exists.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also, you're not just trying to create wealth or something. You're trying to make the world a better place by helping things get to the next stage.
Yeah.
To become gold, because only a few things get there. But because everything is so tied together, like you can't create a work of art unless that is beautiful, unless you have a beautiful soul, unless you have that passion to create beauty. So to be an alchemist, a redeemer of the material world, you have to be able to be redeemed yourself in the spiritual world. So you have to make yourself pure in order to purify the world around you.
And so I'm going to eat a bar of cinnabar.
And so Jung wrote stuff basically that, like Jung's writing was like talking about this and how alchemists are kind of the first psychologists, because you want to purify yourself to purify the world.
Oh, really?
And so and it's really fascinating.
Huh.
And yeah, I don't know too much about it, but that would be an interesting thing to talk about maybe on another
I could research
episode.
alchemy a bit.
Yeah, we could both, or I could, or because it's very fascinating. And yeah, I want to buy some of Jung's stuff on that at some point, but we'll see. Yeah. But yeah, for now I think that's been pretty good. We'll probably have to cut out like half an hour or so, but hopefully if you're kind to us. But the start was a little slow. But
really?
Yeah.
Was it slow?
Oh, I mean like before that. I thought that was all right.
Yeah.
But I'm done. So see ya around later. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for talking.